Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Totally Awesome Podcast, the TAP, the podcast so bad you'll be tapping out by the end of it. My name is JoshAgeddon. You might be tap dancing by the end of it, for all I know, but today I'm going to do something a little off the beaten path. Well, I mean, I do talk about movies on occasion here on my YouTube channel. Like, whenever a movie comes out that I've been interested in, I'll talk about it. Like, when I go see Mission Impossible this upcoming month, I'm definitely going to do a TAP on it. I need to do a TAP on all the Mission Impossible movies, because I really started binge-watching them recently, because I was like, that last one looks really cool. I might as well catch up. And now I'm like, I kick myself, because the Mission Impossible movies are really good, and I wish I got into them sooner, but that's besides the point. I don't normally talk about religion or Christianity here on my YouTube channel. I usually just focus on goofy stuff, like wrestling, video game stuff. Stuff that's not too serious. I rarely ever discuss politics, because politics is the complete and total polar opposite of fun. But, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a Christian. I think I have mentioned that a couple times here on YouTube. I'm a Christian. I believe that Jesus died on a cross for my sins. You know the whole spiel. I very much do believe in that. And this video was also a little late, because this would have been more appropriate to post on Easter Sunday, because it does deal with the crucifixion of Jesus and the resurrection in a way. So it is a little late, but you know what? I don't care. Because actually, the other day, me and Andy, shout out to Andy, by the way, we went to go see a new movie that just came out called King of Kings, which is an animated movie about the life of Jesus told by, what was the name of the dude? I'm never prepared for these podcasts whenever I start. I have zero notes for anything. King of Kings. Yes. Charles Dickens. I knew it was something Dickens. Charles Dickens. Basically, the movie goes about, it's almost kind of like The Princess Bride, where this old dude tells a little kid a story. Well, this animated dude, Charles Dickens, who's a famous author, he tells his son a story, and we basically get to go through the life of Jesus. It's an animated movie. Me and Andy watched it the other day. It's very good. It is very, very, very good. And we saw a preview for another movie about Jesus called Light of the World, which is a different animation style. King of Kings was 3D animation. This will be 2D animation. And there's another Jesus movie about the Christmas story called 0 AD. That looks very interesting. I would love to see that. So the point of all this is maybe it's not that bad a timing to do this video, because I've been thinking about this video for a little while, because a couple months ago, I rewatched one of my favorite movies of all time, The Passion of the Christ. It is definitely in my top 5 favorite movies by Mel Gibson from 2004. If you have not seen The Passion of the Christ, I would recommend it, but I would warn you, saying it is the most violent and disturbing movie you'll ever see. And you're probably wondering, how would a movie about Jesus be violent and disturbing? Well, you see, it's rated R. It is very notorious. And justifiably so, because it is not an easy film to sit through. But I also watched a TV mini-series that I also love called Jesus of Nazareth. It is a multi-part mini-series from, I believe, the 70s. When did this come out? Again, I never do any research. 1977. Oh my god. And it is very long. It was in 1977. And I used to have it on VHS. For those of you Zoomers out there, that was what we had before DVDs. Are there Zoomers out there that don't know what DVDs are? Before streaming, we had Blu-ray. Blu-ray sucked and I hated it. Before Blu-ray, we had DVDs. Before DVDs, we had VHS tapes and VCRs. Before that, we just banged rocks together to entertain ourselves. So yeah, I used to have Jesus of Nazareth on VHS, but several years ago, one of the breakers in my house was having an issue, and it would send electric shocks throughout my house. One of those electric shocks blew out my TV. The other one that sent throughout the house blew out our VCR. So our old VCR no longer works, so I have a bunch of VHS tapes that I can't watch because my VCR doesn't work anymore. I am planning on ordering a new VCR at some point, though, because I do have a bunch of VHS tapes. And I just love VHS tapes. I'm very nostalgic about it. Even though it is tedious when you're done watching a VHS to stop it and rewind all the way to the beginning for the next time someone wants to watch it. Even though that is tedious, it is very nostalgic, especially the rewind noise. I love that. I love that so much. It is very nostalgic. But, so the point of this video, since I watched both of these, The Passion of the Christ and Jesus of Nazareth, I wanted to kind of compare them a little bit, because these are my two favorite depictions of Jesus Christ, who, you know, is a very important figure in my life and in my belief system, because, again, I am a Christian. For those of you that must know, I don't really subscribe to any particular denomination, but I do go to a Southern Baptist church. So technically, I'm a Southern Baptist. Real quick, I'm not super crazy about denominations because I feel like that does nothing but divide the church. The only denomination that I'm not particularly fond of, I'm not particularly crazy about, is Catholicism, because the only person you should be praying to is Jesus. Like, you pray to God, you pray to Jesus, you pray to the Holy Spirit. Mary's important. She's a very important figure in the Bible, but you don't pray to her. She's not God. Yes, she gave birth to Jesus, but no, don't pray to anyone but God. Also, you shouldn't have to ask a priest to pray to God for you. Like, everyone has a direct line of communication to God. You shouldn't need a middleman in order to do that for you. So now all the Catholics are going to be mad at me. If I get a bunch of downvotes or dislikes on this video, it's either going to be from Catholics that I've pissed off or atheists who are just annoyed because I'm talking about Christianity in the first place. Well, you know what? To the atheists listening, you need this more than you know. And I'm praying for you, collectively, to get your act together. But anyway, now that I'm done pissing everyone off, I love The Passion of the Christ. It's one of my favorite movies. And even though it's not a movie, Jesus of Nazareth is one of my favorite, I guess, viewing experiences. I don't know what to call it, because it's not a movie. It's not technically a TV show. It's a mini-series, but like there's not all that many mini-series out there. So it is a viewing experience is what I will refer to it as. So, of course, The Passion of the Christ came out in 2004. Jesus of Nazareth came out in 1977. And I love both of them. Although, I will say, when I rewatched Jesus of Nazareth recently, I watched it on DVD. I have a 2-disc set. I don't know what's wrong with the DVD because the screen just kept warbling. It was like someone put a shake effect. Like, on Wondershare Filmora, my editing software, whenever there's like a lot of shaking to like emphasize a joke or something or a loud noise, I'll put an effect called extreme over it, and that's what makes the screen shake. It looked like someone put that effect over the entire movie. I don't know if it's just because taking it from whatever its original copy was if porting it to DVD, there was some kind of issue, or if it's just this specific DVD set that I have. It was very difficult to watch because the screen kept shaking. I don't remember having that problem with my VHS. So again, older things are sometimes better than newer things. As much as I like DVDs, VHS tapes are just better because they're harder to break. So I don't know what the deal with that was. But also, what the DVD that I'm holding, it says feature runtime, 382 minutes. That's several hours. That is several hours. I forgot how long this thing was. So I put it in, I was watching it on my Xbox Series X, and once I was done, wiping the blood from my eyes after the screen was shaking so much, it was blinding me. I was like, oh, I forgot this is long. I started watching it in the middle of the night, and I didn't finish it till like 6 o'clock in the morning. So, hey, if you're going to stay up late doing something, it might as well be watching something about Jesus. So, at least I have that going for me. Like, you know what? I stayed up till 6 o'clock in the morning watching something about Jesus. So, that's good. My heart was in the right place. My brain, maybe not so much, but my heart was definitely in the right place. So, The Passion stars Jim Caviezel as Jesus, and Jesus of Nazareth stars Robert Powell as Jesus. And that's going to be one of the first things I compare here for this video. I think both of these guys absolutely knocked it out of the park. Robert Powell as Jesus absolutely steals the entire show. One difference between the two is the Passion just deals with the Passion, which is the final 12 hours of the life of Jesus. So it's a very short length of time, because Jesus was on Earth for about 33 years, I believe, a little something over 30 years. I think it's 33 years. He was on Earth for 33 years before his death, his burial, his resurrection, and his ascension into heaven. So the Passion only details the 12 hours leading up to his execution, while the Jesus of Nazareth Mini-Series deals with his entire life. So from the Christmas story to his resurrection. So in Jesus of Nazareth, first little bit, you have little baby Jesus. And then you have a kid actor who I'm not sure what his name is, but he was decent. He only had like a couple minutes of screen time. And then finally we get with Robert Powell as Jesus, and we have him for the rest of the series. Robert Powell is fantastic as Jesus, and so is Jim Caviezel. There is a huge difference, though. They tackle different aspects of Jesus' personality. The Passion of Jesus, he's more when he's not, getting tortured violently, which is most of the movie. When you get the flashbacks to him actually preaching and teaching and talking to people, he's more charismatic. He has more of a pronounced personality, and he's more down to earth and approachable and relatable. You get the feeling like this was an actual guy with a personality. I would love to hang out with this dude because he seems fun to be around. He's soft-spoken, he's gentle. He's the warmth, the kindness, the loving, forgiving part of Jesus that everyone is more familiar with than the kind of Jesus that Robert Powell portrayed. But yeah, with Jim Caviezel's is definitely the kinder, more calm, soft-spoken, friendly version of Jesus. Robert Powell has that at points, but for the most part, Robert Powell's Jesus is more stoic and almost otherworldly. Like, he has more of a divine presence on screen, where he's like, oh, this dude, like, you can kind of get the sense that, he's like completely different from everyone else on screen. And not serious and stoic as in boring, but like intense. Like, and also there are numerous points where he gets super intense. Like the part where Jesus goes to the temple and he gets really mad because the people at the Jewish temple, I believe it's after he arrives in Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. It's like the week that he gets crucified while he's in Jerusalem at the temple. I could be mixing up things. But it's the part where he's in the temple and it's basically just a thrift store. People have turned it into a thrift store. People are buying stuff, selling stuff, and Jesus gets really mad because he's like, you've turned a place of worship, a place of prayer, into a den of thieves and crooks and robbers. And that's when we get the famous story of him turning over tables and chasing people out of the temple. Robert Powell is a very good pissed off Jesus. And he starts yelling at the Pharisees, and he's super intense. Like, Jim Caviezel's Jesus, I would love to hang out with. Robert Powell's Jesus, I would be afraid to piss off. Because that's a scary dude right there. Like, Jim Caviezel, again, he was very cool. He had a presence about him, a little bit of an otherworldly presence. But Robert Powell's Jesus, he had a presence. I guess as the kids these days, who don't know what VCRs are, who barely know what DVDs are, would say he has aura. Yes, I would agree. Robert Powell's Jesus has tons of aura. Please stop saying words, young children. Even when I'm talking about Jesus, my hatred of Zoomerisms and modern day slang remains very much intact. So yeah, I love both of these guys as Jesus. They play very different iterations of Jesus, or like they tackle different aspects of his personality. And I think both of them do a fantastic job. Of course, Robert Powell has a little bit more to work with because he doesn't. Robert Powell isn't just the death, burial, torture, and resurrection of Jesus. Whereas that's what Jim Caviezel. Most of what Jim Caviezel does in The Passion is just get the snot beaten out of him for most of the movie. Just inhumane torture. Whereas Robert Powell, as Jesus, you actually get to see him teach, you get to see him talk to people, perform miracles, do all kinds of stuff. Which is great. I just feel like Robert Powell had a little bit more to work with. I will say, it was kind of hilarious going from The Passion of the Christ, where you're literally seeing a dude get ripped apart by a cat of nine tails, going to Jesus of Nazareth, where they hit him with a stick a couple times. It is not even comparable. Like, when Pontius Pilate is like, have him flogged in The Passion, and in Jesus of Nazareth, it is, one Pilate has a completely different understanding and meaning of the word flog than the other Pontius Pilate. Like, in The Passion, it's brutal. Like, even when they're hitting him with sticks, it looks brutal. And then they pull out the cat of nine tails. Which, for those of you who don't know, a cat of nine tails, or at least the way it was presented in The Passion, it is a whip that has nine, tendrils. It, has nine little whips. But at the ends of these whips is, broken bone, metal, and broken glass. And it, cleaves you. It, attaches to you and, rips your skin off. That's what they started beating Jesus with. And that is the most grotesque thing I've ever seen in a movie. I've seen some horrible, horrible stuff in fiction in my life. My mom's favorite show is The Walking Dead. I'm not a big fan of The Walking Dead, because I think zombies as a plot device is insanely derivative. But you see people get ripped apart and eaten constantly to the point where you're just numb to it after a while. Seeing people get eaten by zombies, apparently not as brutal as watching someone just whip the absolute crap out of Jesus. That scourging scene is absolutely horrific. For those of you that are that have never seen The Passion, that is the scene where I'm going to be like, all right, you're going to have to steel yourself. You're going to have to hunker down and buckle up your seatbelt, because you are not prepared for what you're about to see. Especially, there's one part where one of the cat of nine tails gets stuck into Jesus's ribs, and it gets stuck, and the Roman soldier tugs it a little bit, and it won't come out. So he yanks it right in front of the camera, and chunks of flesh and guts come out, and it's just the worst thing I've ever seen. When I first saw this movie, I was like, oh my god! Tell me, I turned into Booker T. Tell me I did not just see that. It was horrific. Although, if you really want to... One of my favorite things, though, is when Mel Gibson, the guy that directed The Passion of the Christ, when he was asked, don't you think you could have toned down the violence a little bit? His response was, I did tone down the violence. What you see in The Passion is nothing compared to what Jesus actually went through. If you listen to people talk about what Jesus actually went through, he had organs hanging out. You see a little bit of exposed ribs in The Passion. It's a wonder Jesus was actually able to go through with the entire crucifixion in real life, because apparently muscles were exposed, organs were hanging out, multiple ribs were exposed, you could see his spine. It was gnarly. I've heard people say it was hard to tell that he was a human by the time they were done beating on him. So, as grotesque as The Passion is in that regard, it's still a very tame iteration of what Jesus actually went through. And going from that to Jesus of Nazareth, when they scourge him, quote unquote, in Jesus of Nazareth the Mini-Series, it's almost adorable. I still wouldn't want to go through with it, because they hit Robert Powell's Jesus with a stick a couple times, but it's not even comparable. So watching The Passion and watching Jesus of Nazareth, that one particular scene, one is brutal and the other one is man, you really had let him have it easy on this one. So, but the brutality is not the point of the Jesus of Nazareth miniseries. I do just think it's a little funny that one's way more intense and gory than the other one. But again, that's not the purpose of the miniseries. The purpose of the miniseries is to show Jesus' entire life. And it's from the 70s. But it holds up, like, the cinematography in both is just otherworldly. It's even more impressive for the Jesus of Nazareth miniseries because, again, it's back in the 70s. And, like, they would have to be, like, on location for some of these shots. I don't know if they were on location. But some of the shots in Jesus of Nazareth are so impressive. It's so impressive. It's not as impressive for The Passion because it was in 2004 and they had more recent filmmaking technology. And one last thing, talking about Jesus in particular for The Passion and Jesus of Nazareth. I like how both films, or miniseries or whatever, both iterations, they both add an effect to Jesus' eyes to make him seem more otherworldly. Because in The Passion, they made his eyes a little more yellow. Because, like, there's a couple shots where it looks like his eyes are glowing. Some people have criticized that and say that it looks a little silly. I think it's great. I think it's maybe toned down just a teeny bit. Turn down the brightness of Jesus' eyes just a little bit. Like, so it's like a faint glow instead of them, like, looks like they're glowing, like they're yellow eyes. Because there are a few shots where it does look a little peculiar. But I get what Mel was going for, and I do appreciate it. In Jesus of Nazareth, though, full-on bright blue eyes. Full-on pretty bright blue eyes. Now, I understand why they did it that way, because in the region, I don't think people in Israel or Jerusalem or Bethlehem, I don't think the Jews there had blue eyes. I think it was just nothing but a sea of brown-eyed people. Maybe a couple of green eyes here and there. I'm fairly certain no one there had blue eyes. And I feel like they did that on purpose to make Jesus stand out more. And it really helped with his stoicism and his more intense scenes. Like, I'll never forget where the dude who's possessed by demons comes in and is just screaming and carrying on. And, like, from off screen you hear Robert Powell go, "Satan!" And everyone's like, oh dear. And even the demon that's inside this poor guy is kind of like, oh, I've made a terrible mistake on this day. I went running and screaming into the wrong temple. And then Jesus is like, it cuts to Jesus, his hands in the air, and he's just like, leave him. I'm going to find that soundbite right now. All right, I found it. I don't know how well that came through because the music was kind of overpowering, but I hope you could hear the leave him. Super intense, and I love it. Also, I did just go back and cause whenever I'm recording a podcast, sometimes I'll stop and I'll go back and listen to something just to make sure it sounds right. I went back and listened to what I just did, and it just goes from, okay, I got it, to, because that's the demon dude screaming, and then you can barely hear Robert Powell go, leave him. And I was like, wow, that's some audio right there. That is as TAP as it could get. Even when I'm talking about Jesus, this podcast is still a disaster, and I love it so much. That was funny. Okay. Hey, demon dude, you're about to go to jail because you haven't paid your taxes. I'm so stupid. But anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, Robert Powell is a super intense Jesus, and I love him. But I did not know. I completely forgot that in the Jesus of Nazareth miniseries, Judas Iscariot is played by Ian McShane. Because, like, I did not realize, because I love Ian McShane. He's in all the John Wick movies. He's, what's his name? Winston. That's it. That's his name. Because he's Winston in the John Wick movies. And I love him. I forgot that he was in the Jesus of Nazareth miniseries. because and I was like, oh my god, that's the first time I've ever seen Ian McShane as Judas Iscariot. And whenever I think of Judas Iscariot, I have unwittingly thought of Ian McShane, because I was like, oh my god, that's really cool. That's really cool, because again, I love Ian McShane, and he's very good as Judas Iscariot. You get more of a sense that in the Passion of the Christ, that film's Judas Iscariot is more ashamed of what he had done, whereas in the Jesus of Nazareth Mini-Series, like, it's more of a scheme by Judas trying to, like, get Jesus to, like, because the whole thing is, or at least the way they present it in the miniseries, is there's a lot of Jewish people that see Jesus as, oh, this might be the Messiah that will help us lead an uprising against the Romans. And in the miniseries, Judas is kind of on that side of the aisle, and part of why he betrays Jesus is because he realizes, oh, that's not what Jesus is here for. He's doing something different, and I'm kind of mad about it. So that's why he does that. And he, of course, he realizes the error of his ways and goes and hangs himself. But it's more visceral in the Passion, because in the Passion, you get this more overwhelming sense of, oh my God, what have I done? And the self consternation that Judas has in the Passion gets just double whammied, because the devil in the Passion is having these demons torment Judas and drive him insane, and then he hangs himself. Very pleasant viewing experience is the Passion of the Christ. The ending of the Passion is very uplifting and inspirational and amazing, but man, it is a rough road getting there. There's so much just torment on an emotional level getting to the end of the Passion of the Christ. But also, speaking of which, one key difference between the two is, while I do think Jim Caviezel absolutely crushes it as Jesus in The Passion, and Robert Powell is amazing as Jesus in Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus of Nazareth doesn't have a Satan. The only time Satan is mentioned is when Jesus is like, Satan, leave him, that I already litigated. There's no, like, actor that plays Satan in Jesus of Nazareth, but in The Passion of the Christ, the devil is actually given a character and has a significant role. Not like, I wouldn't say super significant. They're only on the screen like maybe 5 minutes. Either way, they cast a woman to play Satan in this movie, and they cast Rosalinda. I have it right in front of me. I don't know this person's name off the top of my head. Rosalinda Celentano. I hope I pronounced that close to correctly. She steals every scene she's in. This and Viggo Mortensen in the movie The Prophecy, my two favorite portrayals or depictions of Satan or Lucifer or the devil or whatever you want to call him. I love Viggo Mortensen just in general, and his performance as the devil in The Prophecy is fantastic. But this is the creepiest Satan I think that has ever been in a movie, because it's a hairless woman playing a male character, so it gives off that androgynous feature to make it even more just like uncanny valley, and just the way she gives her lines. And of course the movie is almost entirely it's either in Aramaic or Latin, and it kind of bounces between the two languages. And honestly, that's one of my favorite, just a really quick side tangent, that's one of my favorite things about The Passion of the Christ is I've never really watched or cared or sought out to watch. I don't have an interest in watching an English dub of The Passion of the Christ, because that kind of takes away the authenticity just a little bit. The fact that it's in Aramaic and Latin, it just makes it feel more real. It gives it I don't mind reading subtitles. I usually watch everything with subtitles on because my brain is weird. I know a lot of people do that, but I like watching movies and stuff with subtitles. A lot of the times it's because the music is this loud. The dialogue is this loud. And I can't hear what's being said. I'm sorry for blowing your eardrums out. But anyway, so yeah, I love the movie is not in English, because it just gives it more authenticity. But yeah, the actress that is portraying Satan, just everything, just the mannerisms, just standing there menacingly, super creepy. The creepiest Satan I've ever seen in a movie, and probably my favorite interpretation of the devil. Just this creepy, androgynous, you don't know what you're looking at. It is such a brilliant usage of the uncanny valley. Especially when, while Satan is standing there talking, just casually for no reason, just you can see a worm crawling around in his nose, and I'm just like, ugh! Can you not? I will say, later on, while Jesus is getting scourged, Satan's walking around in the background with a demon baby. That's weird. I get that, the idea is it's a perversion, because what the devil does is it takes God's creations and produces a counterfeit of it, a perversion of it. So it's like a bastardization of the relationship between a mother and their child, because Mary, the mother of Jesus, is also present at the scourging, and it's a way for the devil to taunt Mary and Jesus at the same time. I love the way they presented the devil in this movie, and it's kind of, I feel like, I mean, I get it. It's already, as it is, 382 minutes long, which is a long time. But I wish that there was some kind of scene with the devil, because they skip over where Jesus goes into the wilderness to fast for 40 days, where he's tempted by the devil. You know, the story where the devil's like, command these rocks to become bread, and Jesus is like, here's some scripture. No, man is not supposed to survive on bread alone, but by the word of God. Or like when he's like, throw yourself off this building. Yeet yourself off this building, and angels from heaven will be sent to catch you. And Jesus is like, the Bible also says, don't tempt God. You should stop doing that. And then the devil's like, why don't you bow down before me, and the entire world is yours. And when he's like, the world belongs to me, and I'll give it to you if you'll bow down and worship me. What Jesus could have said was, I'm literally Jesus. I am God. This is already mine. That this is not your best sales pitch, Satan. But no, Jesus just tells you bow before no one other than God. Get thee behind me, Satan. But I do just think I'm not entirely sure what the devil was thinking, offering Jesus the world, because kind of already has it. He is God, It's like I have. This is gonna be a weird analogy, but it's like I have a huge pizza already, like I've already had delivered a giant pizza, like a massive pizza with just the way I like it, and I go outside and this random hooded weirdo is like, bow down before me, here's your personal pan, and I'm just like, I already have a pizza, thanks. I'm not gonna worship you, Satan. I already have a pizza in there. You can take your little personal pan and have fun. But I already have a pizza in there. This analogy is a little weird, but you get what I'm trying to say. Not the devil's best sales pitch. But anyway. So yeah, also, speaking of Mary, I like Mary in both films. Mary has kind of a minor role, because these movies are about Jesus. Jesus is the central figure. But I love Olivia Hussey. Which, I'm okay, real quick out, this is the only thing I'm going to say about it, and I'll move on. Hussey is not exactly the best last name. Because Hussey, S-U-S-S-Y, that's something you call a woman who misbehaves, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Wink, wink, a lot. There's a lot of winking going on. So, if my last name was Hussey, I would not be thrilled about that. But Olivia Hussey is a phenomenal actress. She was great as Mary in Jesus of Nazareth. She was also Juliet in a very old version of Romeo and Juliet. I think around the same time, because she was a similar age. Unfortunately, I think it was like a couple months ago that Olivia Hussey passed away. When did she pass away? I think she either passed away this year or last year. Olivia Hussey. She passed away on December 27th of 2024. That made me sad, because I was like, oh, that's the first depiction of Mary that I've ever seen in a movie, and she was great. Who's the lady that plays Mary in The Passion? Again, I never research anything before I record anything. Mary in The Passion of the Christ. Wrong Mary. Maya Morgenstern. Never heard of her before. But she was also really good as Mary. There's a scene in The Passion that always makes me have like a knot in my throat. It's when Jesus is, half beaten to death and is still carrying his cross down to Golgotha, where Mary sees him and she runs towards him when he falls over, and it's like showing a flashback of her running to little toddler Jesus who fell and like bumped his knee. And it's like, because the idea is still that's her baby, so she's trying to go help her baby. And then when she reaches adult Jesus, who's bleeding everywhere, he says, "You see, Mother, I told you, I make all things new." Raises up his cross and continues walking. That is a punch directly to my heart. Well, how could you make me this sad, Mel Gibson? That is the part of the movie where every time I watch it, I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry this time. I'm not gonna cry this time. Just look away when he says to Mary, "You see, Mother, I make all things new." I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to look away now. I'm a man. I am a man. I do not have the... Someone better stop cutting these onions in my room with me. Why did you pick this particular part of the movie to start cutting onions? Anyway. Yeah, but both Marys are great. Another person, I did not know that James Earl Jones was in the Jesus of Nazareth miniseries. Because I didn't recognize it. He's one of the wise men during the Christmas story portion of Jesus' life. He's one of the wise men that comes to see Jesus after he's born in Bethlehem. And when I was looking at, before I started recording, I was looking at the cast on the DVD cover, and it said James Earl Jones, and I was like, hold on a second, James Earl Jones was in this movie? And I looked him up, and I was like, oh my god, he was one of the wise men. Because of the freaking getup he was wearing, I didn't recognize him. Also, it was in the 70s, so it was much younger. Was it 1977? That's the year that Star Wars came out. I think, if I don't have my dates mixed up. Star Wars A New Hope. Yep, 1970. Dude, James Earl Jones was busy in 1977. He was in the Jesus of Nazareth Mini-Series. He was in Star Wars A New Hope. And he was in Exorcist 2 The Heretic, one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And if you want to know my opinions on Exorcist 2 The Heretic, I have a lovely little video on that somewhere down in the bowels of my YouTube videos. If you go to my front page and go to the search thing and type in Exorcist, you should find it. But, oh boy, that's a terrible movie. But yeah, James Earl Jones was in Star Wars, Jesus of Nazareth, and The Exorcist 2. That was a big year for that dude. He was in one of the most famous movies ever made, a really, really, really good miniseries, and one of the worst movies that has ever been made. An interesting range for James Earl Jones in 1977. But yeah, I had no idea that he was one of the wise men, and that just blew my mind. So one thing another thing that Jesus of Nazareth had. All right, so the Passion has Satan. Jesus of Nazareth does not. One thing that Jesus of Nazareth has that the Passion does not is John the Baptist. It has John the Baptist in this movie, who was portrayed by Michael York. And I also think he did a fantastic job. It's funny because John the Baptist is always portrayed as a crazy wild man. Like, even in one of my favorite songs, Jesus Freak by DC Talk, when it has a section in one of the verses talking about John the Baptist, talking about eating bugs and the leps in his head. And one of the funniest lines, it was basically saying the Pharisees thought that there wasn't too much left in the upper room, basically saying that he's crazy. Go listen to DC Talk, by the way. It's a really phenomenal Christian rock band from the 90s. Jesus Freak, by the way, probably the best Christian album of all time. I'm not super... Alright. I may be a Christian, but contemporary Christian music is kind of boring, because it's just the same thing over and over and over again. I like the message, I do. You worship Jesus, worship God, that's all great. But why can't it be fun? Can it be fun? I like Christian rock because it makes worshiping God fun. And Jesus Freak is the best Christian rock CD that has ever been made, or album. Best Christian rock album that has ever been made, and I don't think it'll ever be topped. It's so good. So go listen to DC Talk, specifically Jesus Freak. And for those of you that don't know, Toby Mac, one of the most famous Christian artists of all time, that's the band that he was originally from. It was originally him, Kevin Mac Smith, and Michael Tate. Michael Tate, for those of you that don't know, he's the current frontman for the Newsboys, which is another really good Christian rock band. So yeah, if you like Toby Mac, you're going to like DC Talk. Especially Jesus Freak. That's their best album. But anyway, so yeah, John the Baptist is a crazy wild man. In Jesus of Nazareth, he kind of looks like that caveman dude in those "So Easy a Caveman Could Do It" commercials. In fact, I'm pretty sure the caveman in those "So Easy a Caveman Could Do It" commercials, that dude was patterned after John the Baptist in the Jesus of Nazareth Mini-Series, because it's like almost a one-to-one. But he's so great. He's so not like stereotypically, oh my god, he's crazy. But he's more like super intense. Hey, he's one of those the end is nigh kind of dudes that you see on street corners sometimes. Except, he's not screaming the end is nigh. He's basically saying, I'm preparing the way because my cousin Jesus, he's the Messiah. He's almost here. Y'all better buckle up because it's going to get real crazy real fast. And he's just really great as John the Baptist. And that also leads to, I'm not going to look up either of these guys because they're kind of very much a minor role. King Herod Antipas is in both The Passion and Jesus of Nazareth. And very interesting take on both characters, because Herod Antipas in the miniseries, they really focus on him being pervy and lecherous, because he's dating and sleeping with his brother's wife, who, if memory serves, her name is Herodias. Of course, King Herod and Queen Herodias, of course. Like, it's almost like they were meant to be, like, and his brother's name is Philip. Okay, right, real quick, I'm sorry, Philip, if that's your name, but Herod and Herodias, their names are just too similar. They're going to be a thing. Philip, why couldn't you marry a woman whose name kind of sounds like Philip, like Philippius, Philome, or whatever? You had to marry a woman whose name is whose name is basically the female version of your brother. The writing was on the wall there, dude. But anyway, so he's sleeping with Herodias, but he also has a very creepy thing for Herodias' daughter Salome, which there's a part where basically Herodias hates John the Baptist. She hates him because he keeps calling out their adulterous acts and how sinful it is. But Herod Antipas finds John the Baptist kind of amusing and entertaining, and he likes listening to him because he thinks he's crazy, but he thinks that he might be right about some things, so he's kind of scared of him. So he doesn't want to kill him. So Herodias concocts this scheme because she knows that he likes her daughter. Just saying that makes me want to vomit. She knows that he likes her daughter, so he's like, all right, for your birthday, what do you want? And he says, I want your daughter Salome to dance. Salome, dance for me. And he says, I will give you anything that you desire, anything that you want, up until half of the power I have over my kingdom. And Salome does this really weird old time, like, it's almost like she's trying to summon something. It's like more of an incantation than a dance. It's very weird. So after she's dancing, he's like, all right, Salome, you dance for me. And there's a shot where he's like hiding behind his couch. And it is the weirdest thing. Seeing this dude get aroused by his brother's wife's daughter. And man, King Herod Antipas, could you have chosen a less complicated family affair? Did you have to go after your brother's wife's daughter? Just, So after she dances for him, he's like, all right, you dance for me, what do you want? And she looks at her mom, and her mom's like, do it. Almost like Lord Palpatine in episode 3 of Revenge of the Sith going, do it. She's like, I want the head of the Baptist. And Herod is like, oh, no, I don't want to. And Salome is like, but you promised. And Herodias is like, do you want to be seen as a liar, a man who does not keep his word in front of all your subjects? And Herod Antipas is like, oh, they pulled a wool over my, they got one over on me. I fell for it. I'm a stupid man. My stupid, lecherous penis was distracted by Salome because I'm a creepy old man who's sleeping with my brother's wife, and I want to sleep with my brother's wife's daughter because that's just not gross or confusing. And they took advantage of me, and then they go and kill John the Baptist. So that's King Herod Antipas. A very pleasant, nice character. But at least he's not like his dad, where his dad was just straight up murdering babies. So I guess being a lecherous, adulterous, creepy dude is not as bad as straight up baby murderer, whereas that's what King Herod was, the OG King Herod. King Herod Antipas is briefly in the Passion of Christ, but he has like a 3-minute scene where he's just a party dude. Like, they take Jesus over there because King Herod Antipas is the current king of Jerusalem, king of the Jews or whatever. And they're like, all right, send him to King Herod so Herod can decide what to do with him. If you want to execute him, you have to take him over there. And King Herod is in the middle of a party, and he's almost like, dude, we're having a party. Why'd you have to bring this dude that you've already beat up? Why'd you beat him up? You brought him over here to, like, screw up the party, like, and like, he's trying to talk, and Jesus just, Jim Caviezel's Jesus just has the most, this party is making me so uncomfortable right now. Like, I've never seen a dude who did not want to be at a party more than Jesus was at that point. And it's because there's so much sin happening before him that he's just visibly disgusted by all of it. And King Herod doesn't know what to make of him. He's just kind of like, who is this guy? Hello? They say you're the king of the Jews. Are you that? Because that's kind of my title. That's my thing. Why aren't you talking to me? Why are you looking at me like you're about to gag? What, did I do something? Do you want to party with us? And Jesus I don't even think Jesus says anything to him, because he's probably just like, you're weird. You and all of your friends are gross. I'm about to get tortured and die. We're really just prolonging the inevitable here. And then eventually King Herod Antipas is like, all right, this dude's stupid. Throw him out. Let's get back to the party. And that's the King Herod scene in the Passion of the Christ. So I think they did King Herod Antipas better in the Jesus of Nazareth Mini-Series than in the Passion. But in the Passion, he's like in there for like 2 seconds. Whereas he has several scenes in Jesus. Because again, the Passion, there are characters where the Passion does not focus on as much, because that's not the point of the movie. Also, it doesn't have 14 and a half hours to go through. The Passion is, like, how long is the Passion of the Christ? It is 126 minutes. It's 2 hours long. So, of course, it's not going to go into every little minutia detail. It's here for the final 12 hours of Jesus, and that's it. Whereas Jesus of Nazareth is 5.5 days long, and it's about his entire life. So it has more time to go to more tertiary biblical characters like King Herod Antipas and Herodias and Salome. And no, it does not escape me that Salome almost kind of sounds like the word sodomy. I feel like that was done intentionally. I feel like that is her name for a reason, because it almost kind of sounds like sodomy, because King Herod Antipas is gross. Can you not? Okay, it's bad enough that you want to get with your brother's wife. I don't care that your names are practically the same. You are literally the king. Can you not? You literally chose the two worst people to have a crush on. Your brother's wife and her daughter. Wrong on the first count. You, gross, also wrong on the second count. You are literally the king, dude. You could honestly have any Jewish woman you want. Why these two? Specifically because it's more wrong? Does the wrongness of it just attract you more? I don't know. They definitely did a much better job making him... In The Passion, he's just kind of like a weird party dude, but in the Jesus of Nazareth miniseries, they made him like a... He's basically Master Roshi, except not a good guy. He doesn't have a heart of gold buried beneath being creepy and lecherous. That was a tangent. Now, my King Herod Antipas tangent was one for the ages. But, so yeah, these are, like, if you're a Christian, or if you're curious about Christianity or religion or whatever, even if you're not a Christian, these are the two Jesus cinematic experiences. Although, again, I would definitely not show The Passion of the Christ to any young children. I would wait till they're older, because it is extreme. Like, I was describing literally earlier the part where they hit him with the cat o' nine tails and they yanked out body parts. So yeah, I wouldn't show a child that. You can show a child Jesus of Nazareth, because the worst that gets is a couple people get stabbed here and there. The part where King Herod is like, kill the babies! Like, a soldier goes after a woman who's holding a baby, and then they go into a room and you see one shadow stabbing another shadow. That's as bad as that gets. And Jesus gets hit with a stick a couple times. I wouldn't show like a 1-year-old that, but I feel like your 5-year-old could handle Jesus of Nazareth. Unless the 5-year-old would get bored, because that's very likely. Not that it's not good. It's that, again, it's so long. Like, if you have like a 5-year-old that does not sit down for very long, I would like show like episodes of Jesus of Nazareth at a time, because like in the VHS or the DVD, like once it's done with the part, it'll like the screen will fade to black. It'll fade to black, and then it'll start again. Every time it fades to black, I'm like, all right, now I can go play with Legos or whatever 5-year-old Timmy or Susie wants to do. You want to go play with toys? Go do that, and then come back in a couple minutes for more of. We're gonna watch more Jesus. This is important. This is very important, little Timmy. Like, yes, it's the same thing we talk about at church on Sundays, but it's a visual aid. It works for me, personally, because I know reading the Bible is important. This is one of my things. I don't read the Bible as much as I should. I'm knowledgeable of the Bible, but I don't read it as much as I should. I'm not a big reader. I'm not. I know I have a BA in English, and I'm not a big reader. I'm a confusing human being. I understand this. This is why I prefer, like, Bible movies and stuff like that. Because I know that it's not, like, one-to-one for the sacred texts. But I'm very much a visual learner. I would rather watch things move, because that's just how my brain works. But I should read my Bible more often. Like any other book, like... I watched the Dune movies, and I got the Dune book, and I read a little bit of it, and I kind of stopped for a little bit, because again, I'm just like, I already know what happens. I don't enjoy reading. The Bible is one of those things where it's like, I should read it. I do have a manga Bible, where it's the Bible, but every couple hundred pages, there are like manga panels that are like illustrations, like Japanese-styled illustrations of biblical events. That is pretty cool. There is a manga Bible. If you're into manga and the Bible, then I have boy do I have the Bible for you. Anyway, back to the movies. Yeah, like the score for both is really good. The ending for both is really, although I will say the ending of The Passion, where the stone gets rolled away and Jesus stands up triumphantly after everything he went through, after getting beaten literally near death to being crucified and just being an absolute bloody mess. You see him in the tomb completely clean. He looks like a person now. And he doesn't look like he was sent through a meat grinder anymore. And he stands up, and you see the holes in his hands, and he walks off, and then that's the end of the movie. That's one of the best endings to a movie I've ever seen. Because that is such a triumphant, yeah, he's God, all right. He went through all that for us, but like not even that could keep him down. It's one of the more inspirational endings to a movie I've ever seen. And also, Mel Gibson was recently on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he said that the resurrection of the Christ, which would be the sequel to The Passion, is hopefully going to come out next year. I cannot wait to see that. I'm so curious as to what Mel Gibson has in mind. Because rumors for a sequel to The Passion of the Christ, there have been rumors about this movie for a long time, for like well over 10 years. Like, I remember people talking about it like back in like 2013, 2014, and just nothing coming from it. I knew that like he wanted to, but now he's like actually getting down to doing it, and Jim Caviezel is going to reprise his role. Dude, if we get the resurrection of the Christ next year, absolutely, I'm going to go see that, and you're going to get a TAP on that. Because, again, The Passion of the Christ is one of the best movies I've ever seen. One of my all-time favorite movies. I am very curious as to what he has in mind for the resurrection. Especially because it's known by a lot of people that during the 3 days that Jesus was dead, a lot of people say, I don't remember ever reading this in the Bible, but there are people that say that Jesus went to hell to preach in hell to people in hell during the 3 days that he was dead. I've heard rumblings that that's how the resurrection of the Christ, or that like scenes about that are going to be in the movie. And if that is the case, I'm very curious about that. Because the only thing we saw of hell in The Passion was after Jesus died. It cuts to androgynous Satan screaming as the camera's slowly zooming out, and it's this barren landscape that's supposed to be hell, which was creepy. So I'm curious if they actually do that. I'm like, that's gonna be because I've seen Mel Gibson say that he has 2 scripts in mind for the film. One of which is what you would expect. The other one's an acid trip. What do you mean by it's an acid trip? If the script is an acid trip, then he's probably referring to the scene where Jesus is preaching in hell, if he actually includes that. Because I don't know if he's actually going to do that in the movie. I kind of hope he does, just to see like what it looks like, because that would be crazy. That would be crazy. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the resurrection of the Christ. We're probably, and you know the memes are going to be like, we got Resurrection of the Christ before GTA 6. Funny, because I've never played Grand Theft Auto ever. So there's that. But yeah, to round out this video, I highly, highly, highly recommend you watch The Passion of the Christ and Jesus of Nazareth. But like I've said throughout this podcast, The Passion of the Christ is the most violent movie you will ever watch. It is very uncomfortable at points. Be prepared before you press play, because you are in for a ride. And it's also in another language. Do not listen to the English dub. This is weird for me, because I'm on all for English dubs, especially for anime. But for this specifically, do not chicken out and listen to the English dub of The Passion. That is not how it was intended to be watched. That is not how it was intended to be consumed. You watch it in the original Aramaic and Latin, and you read and you deal with it with those eyes of yours that God gave you to read the subtitles. Why did God create eyes? So we could read subtitles. and that's it. He very much encourages reading. So yeah, but again, watch it in the original way it was in. I believe it's on Netflix. I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix. Although I have heard that Netflix removed the Bible verse at the very beginning, because at the very beginning it has a verse from Isaiah, the one where it says, "He by his wounds we are healed. He was crushed for our iniquities, and hurt for our sins." And I totally didn't butcher that verse at all. But apparently Netflix removed that from the beginning of the movie. And enough people got mad at Netflix about that they re-added it to the movie. So I'm just like, maybe don't remove parts of the movie from the movie in the first place, Netflix? How about that? Same platform that thought it was a good idea to release that movie Cuties from several years ago. So, I'm just saying, the people in charge of Netflix aren't known for making the best decisions, but it is on Netflix, although I would much rather you get it on VHS or DVD, or if you find it on Blu-ray, fine. Blu-ray is lame, and I hate it, but if you have to, then fine. But yeah, it's a very violent movie. Do not watch it with your young kids. It is too much for your kids. I would say so. It's rated R for a reason. But it's one of the best movies I've ever seen, and I love it. I also highly recommend Jesus of Nazareth, although I don't know if you're going to be able to sit through the whole thing in one sitting. You might have to watch it over a period of days. Don't do like I did and start at the middle, start at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night and be done with it at 8 a.m. I don't know. Don't do that. Don't pull a Joshua and do that. But both of them are absolutely worth watching. I've always loved Jesus of Nazareth. That was the first, biblical depiction movie thing I watched when I was younger. I watched it when I was little, and I loved it. Even when I was little, I loved it. Even though I forgot how long it was, obviously. Definitely get the VHS, because, again, I don't know if it's just my DVD, but the screen was just warbling, and it made me want to vomit. So, get it on VHS. And if you're a Zoomer, figure out what a VCR is, figure out what a VHS is, and then go from there. Have fun with old-time technology that I'm technically Gen Z. I'm in that weird space between millennials and Gen Z, so I have no idea what I am, but I know what a VHS is. I remember the days when it was analog TV and the only channel that ever did anything was Channel 3. I remember those days. Those were simpler times, but anyway, go watch The Passion of the Christ. Go watch Jesus of Nazareth. Just put it in your schedule. Take off an entire day to watch one of the most violent things you've ever seen and one of the longest things you've ever seen. Have fun with those, and maybe the next time I do a Jesus-related video, it'll actually be on either Easter or Christmas. It'll be more time appropriate, other than I saw a Jesus movie 2 days ago, so that's close enough, I guess. So, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of TAP, the worst podcast you ever listened to. It's so bad it'll make you tap out. Thank you guys so much for watching, subscribe, and all that fun stuff, and I will see you guys next time. And of course, He is risen. Never forget, He is risen indeed. Good night, everybody.